This is WeBurlesque.
Hello, everybody. My name is Miss Aurora Bubrialis, and today I will be your moderator. Welcome to the WEView, and this is a WeBurlesque production. And I'm super excited. This is my first time moderating and first time on the WeView, and I am super excited to talk with these amazing burlesquers. So, I'm just going to ask each of them to say a quick introduction of who you are and a little brief of what you do in the burlesque world. I'm going to start with Whisper since you are right next to me on my screen.
Hi, I'm Whisper de Corvo. I am a burlesque performer and producer based out of Seattle, Washington, and I have been performing since 2008. I am also the head of House de Corvo, and yeah, I just perform and go places and shimmy and shake it.
Yay, love it. And excited to talk with you. And so from Whisper, I'm gonna go to Foxy. Who are you and what do you do?
Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. My name is Foxy Bellafrique. I am a producer here in New York City and performer. Um, I am locally based. I produce Frolic, which is a Black burlesque review and the longest running Black burlesque show here in New York City. This is our eighth year. We produced throughout, even during the pandemic online. Um, and I also perform as a drag king, Uncle Freak. Unfortunately, I can't travel anywhere to perform, so I only do local shows. But I love this community and working with a lot of performers here. Reina, we've worked together. Miss Aurora Borealis, also Monet and Victor when Victor was here in New York City. So I hope I'm looking forward to the discussions, especially regarding parenthood.
Yes, yes, thank you. And Monet, let's introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Monet City from Sacramento, California. I am a multi-award-winning burlesque performer. I am a producer. My tagline is from Chuck E. Cheese to Tassel Tease, hairstylist by day, burlesque by night, and activist all the time. I am also working on bringing virtual back with Cheese TV for the House of Cheese because we need more accessible spaces. And I feel like everybody just abandoned that platform when everything opened up, and with everything that's happening right now, I feel that we need those spaces again. And that's where I can work with people like Foxy again. And I love Victor because I took Victor to Disneyland and they had a good time and we had a good time together.
Oh, I love burlesque hangs outside of burlesque backstage areas. Oh my God, I love that. And Reina.
Hi, I'm Raina Sinclair. I've been doing burlesque for 15 and a half years now. I am the producer of Magical Girl Burlesque and co-producer of Emolesque Fest, both based in New York City. I occasionally travel, but I am mostly based in Brooklyn.
Awesome. Yay. Oh, I forgot to say all the little things that I do. Aurora, Miss Aurora Bubrialis. Let me get my own name right. And I've been doing burlesque. Oh God. Math is not my strong point. I feel like, am I at 19 years at this point? No, 18. I don't know, a long ass time. Started in 2007. Who can math for me? I'm
19. I'm
19.
19.
Yep, I'm 18 too. So yeah, you're 19.
Okay. Wow. All right, cool. 19 years. And I did a whole bunch of stuff. And currently I'm doing some more stuff. I co-produce Boombox Burlesque, a hip hop burlesque festival. We're in our fourth year this September. And I am the current executive director of BurlyCon. And feel like there was something else, but I forget. I don't know. I do a lot of stuff and I love burlesque. And oh, and I have a 14-year-old. So I'm also very excited about this parenthood conversation, which we will get to later on. Uh, but I am going to start. So we are all here. You all know who we are. And we're going to start talking about problematic music choices. And I wanted to jump in and put it out to any of you, just as a performer first, and then because I know that a bunch of you also produce, but I wanted to start with the from the performer perspective. Just have you ever had an act that you made some time ago and then something comes to light with the music that makes you go, and what did you do about it? Yeah, I'm gonna start there, and I see Whisper got some hands up right away, so jump in.
Yeah, I have a Lady Loki act that I do. That is my current longest running act, and I dance to Rammstein. It's Du Hast. It's the perfect song for the attitude I bring on stage. And then I went to Europe and found out that, like Marilyn Manson here, the lead
Mm.
singer of Rammstein is utter trash and has been very abusive. Uh, not the entire band, but specifically him. Yay! So I am now currently in the search of a new song, and my fantastic act is on hold until I find one. So
Ouch.
yeah, it's a stroll. The funny thing for me, however, is I was talking to a performer and telling her for the first time that Marilyn Manson is a problem, and she had to go through all of the feelings of losing the song that she wanted and then finding a new song. And then when the inverse happened to me about Rammstein, I went to her first and I was like, well, you should know because I'm the one that told you that this happens to other people too. And now I'm in the same place.
Hmm. Monet, jump in, jump in.
Okay, so I was a huge Marilyn Manson fan.
Yeah, me too.
I even went to a friend's rock star party dressed as him. I went to Modesto to a convention hall to see him. And if you knew anything about Modesto and the convention hall, you'd be like, oh my God. And also, I ran into him at a Walmart in West Sac after I came back from the New Kids on the Block show and I need to get cat food when Walmart was gloriously open 24 hours. And I saw him coming out of the toy aisle and he didn't have any makeup on. And I'm like, are you Marilyn Manson? Yes, I am. Huh. And this is before phones had cameras and stuff, and my digital camera was in the car. He was actually nice to me. We talked for a minute. We talked if he still, was friends with Billy Corgan. He wasn't. He didn't have any makeup on. He was probably surprised I recognized him. And I called my friend who's a huge fan of him, and I was like, oh my God, I just met Brian Warner at the Walmart because that's his government name. Marilyn Manson for me, and I feel like it was always there, but I just didn't pay attention to it because his song Irresponsible Hate Anthem, the lyrics are everybody else is someone else's nigger. And I feel like at that time that's not appropriate, and I don't understand why I was okay with that. But we all learn from growth and different things, and some things that we may have been good okay with past, we're not good with now. So especially with pole dancing, I used to dance to him and certain things I have to redo my act because I actually think I used to even do my Freddy Krueger act to his version of Sweet Dreams. Um, and it's a delicate thing now because before we didn't know so much about people, but now everybody's so outwardly horrible that it's like this minefield that like I am navigating too because he was at Billy Corgan's birthday party because everybody thinks because he's sober now he was not an abuser, but I'm like he's still a racist. He called James Eha from Smashing Pumpkins an Asian slur that I never heard of before with a text with Johnny Depp, another problematic person. And I have 37 Smashing Pumpkins tattoos and seen them 55 times and devoted so much time to them. I am not going to see Smashing Pumpkins on this upcoming tour.
Mm.
Because his association with Manson. As a Black woman and a sexual assault survivor, I cannot do it. And a lot of people are like, well, separate the artist from the art. I don't know if it's my autism. I don't know if it's my intersections, but I can't do it. And for me, it hurts my heart because Smashing Pumpkins, anybody who knows me knows how they were the biggest part of my life. Such a
So,
huge part of my life.
yeah.
And I
When
have to say goodbye to them.
it's heavy when we are as artists, the music is such a part of what we do as burlesque performers, right? But also just how, even just as people growing up at a certain time, how music has has shaped us in who we are and our identities in general. So then to have those moments where we learn something about who created what, some of our, it's really, thank you, Monet, for sharing that journey. It's, and it can happen at any moment. And I want to look over, I'm seeing, even though you all can't see us because you're just listening to our amazing voices, we get to see each other so we can communicate better. So I'm seeing some moments from Raina and Foxy, and I'm wondering if one of you wants to speak to that experience. Raina.
I can't really think off the top of my head if I've personally had to change the song of any of my acts, but as somebody who mostly does a lot of rock music and produces a lot of rock music burlesque, I think a thing that I am always sort of trying to be aware of is the reputation of who I am performing to.
Mm,
And uh obviously, like, we make some choices because, I mean, I think in all honesty, like, it's sort of hard to completely say I'm never going to listen to a creepy or problematic artist ever again, because then we'd have to cancel basically 90% of music artists. Um, and that's especially a thing in male rock music. And so, like, I think what I actively try to do is be like, okay, nobody who is racist, homophobic, transphobic, misogynistic, unfortunately, is something that, like, has a long storied history in rock music. And so you kind of have to pick your battles with that. Like,
mm,
nobody who is actively like an abuser or assaults anybody. But like, sometimes when you are running a festival, if it's like something that happened in the past, or if the person is dead and it's not like a huge thing, you have to unfortunately make certain concessions, I think. Like, for instance, um especially in emo and pop punk, there's a lot of 20 something men that were creepy to teenage groupies. Let's be real about it. Let's be real about it. And so, like, a thing me and my co-producers have actively had to do is been like, well, we'll accept this song because, like, there isn't any serious allegations against this person. It's just that they were a 20 something sex pest in the 2000s. And again, if we cancel all the 20 something sex pests, we will not have a festival. um and unfortunate as that is, sometimes you have to pick and choose your battles. But like, yeah, like, I don't listen to Marilyn Manson anymore. I refuse to have Marilyn Manson in my shows because of the fact that he's a racist and a Nazi sympathizer and a sexual assaulter. Stuff like, I don't know, Pete Wentz sort of having a teenage girlfriend when he was 23, and by all accounts from all sides of that relationship, he basically was just extremely depressed and unmedicated, and she left him and he was sad about it and wrote some songs, and they never talked to each other ever again. Like, not great, but he's a dad of three, and as far as we know, never really actually hit on the groupies. He just did that because he was 23 and dumb, and it was 2002. And so there's sort of like, you sort of have to weigh the calculations of what is okay and what isn't, I guess. Does that make sense?
finding the nuances.
Yes.
I think we all, and it's okay if we disagree. Like some of us could be like, no, not at all. And some of us could be like, yeah, totally. And we all have to do what makes sense for ourselves and our own understanding. Before I shift this question to Raina, you already brought up the producing end a little bit, but Foxy, I wanted to see if you wanted to chime in for anything as a performer before we get into the producing end.
For sure. So many people I loved, like CeeLo Green. Um, I had to completely cut him off. And I have a ban list for myself and for performers. I definitely never need to reiterate to people who problematic artists are, but I've had to on occasion. For myself, CeeLo Green was heavily on my roster for drag king acts. Also Elvis Presley. Uh, I I will not listen to Elvis Presley. I will not book anybody who's doing Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley was a pedophile. I'm sorry. He married a teenager. I am a parent, and I cannot imagine, that happening to my child, or whether it was consensual or not, even though her parents did agree. I just find, for me personally, I think there are no nuances for me. It's just if the person was a predator, if the person was problematic, it should be that easy to cut them off. Yes, it may mean that the music selection is so much less. For me, it is for sure, especially as a burlesque performer. I perform primarily to Black music, Black artists. But sometimes I will perform to a white artist, but I meticulously research once I find out that that person is problematic. In the beginning, when I started performing 8 years ago, no, I didn't. I just picked songs that sounded good. Didn't quite care what the background was. And again, because I thought burlesque was going to be fun and not political and not, we're not going to discuss certain things. It's going to be my escape. And I quickly found out that was not the case. So CeeLo Green, even James Brown, people who have committed violence against women and children, I personally cannot continue to support. And I've had to really reconcile with that. Like, am I being difficult? Am I not, should I give a bit of leeway? I don't care if they've passed or not. I think me listening to them or me performing to them is giving them airspace they do not deserve, dead or alive. Um, so for me personally, I won't lie to you, it has been a struggle, but it's gotten easier over the years. Just based on my own personal experiences, I think picking new acts or picking new songs, um, especially if you have an act that's just so perfect with a specific song, like um, when CeeLo Green came out with that song "Fuck You," I had an
Mhm.
act to it that was very popular, and I had to tell producers I cannot do this act, and they would say, "Well, it's not a big deal." It is a big deal. It bothers me. I don't feel comfortable doing it. That means I'm not going to get booked because I don't want to perform to this artist, to Elvis Presley, or anyone else. Elvis Presley, who's very popular, everybody loves him for some reason. Okay. And I think people forget not only did this man like little kids, but also he stole from Black artists and musicians. To me, I think once you find out the history of a person, it doesn't matter what they've contributed in, within the landscape of pop culture music. I would say it is our responsibility to find other music. There's a lot of music from, around the world. It's not just American music. And I think so a lot of people just sequester themselves to just what's here. And I don't. I perform to African music. I perform to a lot of artists. Sometimes people don't know who they are. And I'm like, well, this is an African artist, this is a Brazilian artist, this whoever it is. But yes, for me, it's a definite hard no to just cut somebody off. Marilyn Manson, I never liked Marilyn Manson, so that wasn't a problem. But I do remember being booked for a show to perform to him before I knew who he was. Well, I knew who he was, but his music was not something that resonated with me. And then I read about the things that he did to certain people in his lives, especially women in his life. And just realizing that, you know what, cis male artists tend to get away with a lot of abuse. And I think we are reinforcing that abuse when we perform to them, especially in burlesque and in drag. And that's just my personal opinion. So for me, it's not hard to say no to that. I actually think people should be able to say no more. It doesn't matter how popular that person, and I don't care if they're alive or dead. They should not have any space to infiltrate. Because to me, it feels like they're still infiltrating. What if another person listens to the music? They're like, oh, I like this artist. They're not aware of the history. Shouldn't we make them aware? Or it's not difficult to stop listening to something. I think what's difficult is resigning within yourself that this person is no longer a person that's worthy of your adoration. And I think we put too much emphasis on these artists. They're regular people just like us, and they should face the consequences like we would if we were in their position. So yes, for me as a performer, it's been difficult. I pick and choose my music very carefully, and I've had to CeeLo Green, I've had to cut him off. James Brown. James Brown is another one. That one is very hard because that's quintessential Uncle Freak. And I have not performed to a James Brown track since I found out how he abused women. And so for me, that's usually my hard line. People who abuse women, who abuse children. It's just, there's no, as a parent, I just can't see myself doing it. However, I will say, if I wasn't a parent, I don't know if I would have the same discernment. And that is the truth. But now that I'm a parent, I'm like, you know, how do I explain to my kid, to my daughter, if she found out about Elvis Presley or James Brown or CeeLo Green and says, Mom, you keep telling me that these people are not people that I should associate with or listen to. I'm always telling her what music is okay to listen to, what is not. And I would be a hypocrite to perform to a song just because I want to get paid for a gig. That's my take on it.
Thank you so much, Foxy. And Whisper, I see your hand shot up.
Yeah, I have two things. I really struggle with the concept of separating the art from the artist, because if what we are drawn to is part of the art, the artist puts themselves into the art that they create. And if we acknowledge that, then it's very hard to separate the horrible things that they've done from the art that they put out, regardless of how we feel about the art. So that was the one thing I wanted to say. And the second, I wanted to pose a question because I've struggled with this one myself. How do you feel about doing covers where other people do a cover of the song in as a way of working around it?
Yeah. Monet, I see you.
So my thing is this, like it was brought up in the chat. If I'm at a show, for example, I was the bar next door to me. I was hanging out and an R. Kelly song came on. And I left immediately. Because that's the issue that I have. And I don't know what's my autism or my intersections. But if I hear music from that person that I know did certain things, that's all I can think about. And I can't separate the art from the artist in that manner. So I'm old school. I have a CD player in my car. I have a CD player in every room in my house. I have a cassette player. And when I drive to work, I listen to mixed CDs. And I have a lot of mixed CDs from when I was teaching pole classes regularly that have songs on them that I can no longer listen to because the person came out to be, usually it's an abuser of women. I mean, that's the main usual thing. And it's like, even though I'm in a CD, I'm not streaming it, but it's a CD in my car. I even can't listen to it. And I got to skip it. I can't bop to it. And that's just my hard line on a lot of things, that there is so much music. And back to my Smashing Pumpkins, I will still listen to them. I have the CDs, but I'm no longer spending money. Billy Corgan's no longer getting any of my money because, like, I can't get down with what he's doing. I will still listen to the music, but I'm not spending any money. So that's my line with them because of how hard it has been, because they were such a huge part of my life for most of my life. And their music literally did save my life. But as a producer and a performer, we do have to realize I'm not the only one with this mindset. So you want to think about anybody in your audience who may be potentially triggered because you're deciding to play or platform music from an artist that they also know has been problematic.
Definitely. And what about, yeah, so that whisper you were asking about, what about covers? And I feel like there was a conversation on the Book of Faces recently, right? I saw Victor was talking about it. Raina, I see your hand up, where there was a performer that was talking, asking everybody's what about a cover? Like they're like this piece, right? Raina.
I think a thing that I've been thinking about recently is this idea of other artists covering artists they love that they are problematic to sort of reclaim that music from the person. So, like, for instance, I'm in the middle of casting for a show of all Smiths covers because I don't really like the Smiths, but I made a joke about Morrissey, and somebody was like, I think you should do that show. I would pay for you to produce that show. And so I'm doing a But I Can Fix Him, the Smiths without Morrissey. And so it's all just covers of the Smiths and different people that have covered the Smiths. And like the whole point is basically being like, hey, yeah, he had great ideas, but also fuck that guy.
Oh, Morrissey.
And so like the whole point is sort of like parodying like Morrissey's over, yeah, it's sort of like group therapy. Like just sort of parodying Morrissey's pompousness and being like, you can like take this like as another example, I think Emo-lesque Fest is the point is taking the music that wasn't necessary, that was for you, that was like deep in your teenage heart, but was like written by like men talking about their shitty girlfriends and then being like, you know what? I'm going to reclaim this for myself. You thought like, or like, it's either, I think like, again, yes, like there are some artists that I don't ever want to touch ever, but like I will probably always like sing along to like some shitty song from the 90s or the 2000s, and as long as I don't give that person money. Yes.
Okay, so it's funny that you bring up Morrissey. And the reason why I say this is because Benjamin Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie, my now number one band,
Yes.
performed at a San Francisco sketch fest thing with Thomas Lennon, who was Lieutenant Dangle from Reno 911, with the
Yes.
Sweet Tender Hooligans, which is a Smiths Morrissey cover band.
Okay.
And Thomas Lennon came out as Morrissey. Like you could tell that they loved him, but they made fun of him. And I have the blouse that he wore because, of course, he wore a blouse. And he was like, oh, I don't like girls. Like just it was like the funniest thing. So if there's a video of it somewhere, it's Sacramento or San Francisco Sketch Fest with Thomas Lennon with the tribute to the Smiths and Morrissey that will get you in the mindset of this show that you're doing. And the jokes that he even made about himself, like he had Jane Wilden from the Go-Go's like send him a cease and desist or restraining order on stage. It was like this whole thing. So yeah, Morrissey is a problem, but that Simpsons episode about him was spot on.
And like I think like to that point, it's like there's something therapeutic about making fun of like this larger than life rock star, like,
Mm.
and bringing them down a peg, that makes it so that you realize, oh, isn't this dumb? Like, you're such a great artist, yet you like are so shitty in this way. Why are you shitty in this way?
Which I feel like, Raina, is a perfect thing that we are able to do in burlesque, because to burlesque itself, right? It was set up to burlesque to to critique, to I'm like using my hands as if people can see me, but only you all can see me. That is the word. Thank you. Right? Satire, right? And like against the larger like punching up, obviously, right? That concept that we have now of punching up or versus punching down, but like burlesque at its core was satire, the upper classes. So being able to use burlesque in that way to even comment on, say, like your example of Morrissey, like FYI, I was about to be like, I want to do a number, but I was like, Aurora, you do not have the time to make a brand new act right now. Step away from emailing Raina. But I almost did. It's like, oh. But yeah, so I will be in the audience.
I was just gonna say quickly, I like the idea of what Reina was suggesting, the parody of these really problematic people, um, but not necessarily having to hear their voices. Like Monet was just talking about R. Kelly. R. Kelly was a very hard one to stop listening to. Very hard one. I mean, even now when I hear him, it's like it's so you hear him everywhere, especially around here where I live in Flatbush, Brooklyn. It's like they don't care almost. They want to be able to revere this person and ignore the things that he has done. And some of this stuff that these people have done are egregious, documented. Um, and it feels, I don't know, for me personally, I haven't done any shows where I've had people do covers. Um, but I do like the idea of doing a cover. To be honest, I haven't thought about it because I've felt so upset at these artists and how they have tarnished the art they've made is how I feel. They've now tarnished it. It's completely tarnished. And, hardcore Elvis Presley fans, I sound crazy telling them I can't listen to Elvis Presley at all. And I'm like, just do the research. It's not hard to see where these point of views come from. But I think covers are a good way and parodies of these really horrible people, to reclaim, as Reina mentioned, to reclaim your time, to reclaim your bodily autonomy for those who are not able to, especially in burlesque. But yeah, I do really, really like the ideas of covers. That's a really good point. My brain is turning. But yes, it's not necessarily it's I think the reason why for some people like myself it's very easy to separate the art from the artist is because some of us have real life problematic people who are revered in the community who constantly are causing us harm. And so I think my way of dealing with it is by completely cutting off certain artists, which I've been told you can be too, like I know when I send somebody sent me a mystical act one time, and I was like, I can't play mystical. We're not playing mystical. And I had to make them, and they were really upset. And so I didn't book them. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I'm like, we're not playing mystical. And so things like that, like, would I listen to a mystical cover? Maybe. I never thought about it. But not me personally perform to it, but maybe another person. But yeah, I think for a lot of us who have very strong hard lines with this. I think it's reflective of our own experiences. Um, and for me personally, it 100% is that I can tell you 10 years ago, it would not have been that the case. In fact, 10 years ago, I probably would have defended James Brown, R. Kelly, and all those people, you know.
Mm.
But there's growth in understanding and experiencing certain things in your life, which make you realize, okay, well, while this art form is supposed to be satirical, exploratory, performance art, we still owe it to our audience to be authentic, to be honest, and to, not just perform for the sake of getting a paycheck or exposure, as some people may do. Um, and that's just how I feel about it. I'm not a big fan of my whole thing is the 70s, as most people know, 70s music, anything 70s, 80s, early 80s. And there's a lot of people in that era who unfortunately are just like absolute no's, but the idea of covers is very interesting to me. So thank you for that, Rena.
Awesome. I want to
Music burlesque is good.
I want to sort of go on to the last bit of this topic before we take a break, which was, and Raina and Foxy, you've mentioned it a tiny bit, about what is our responsibility as producers. And do you have, I know because Foxy, I've done Frolic, I know you have, in the email that you get, you're like, these artists are, you have very specific guidelines. And I have not applied to Emo Less Fest, so I'm not sure how you all work it, but this is open to everyone. I know for, us at Boombox, we definitely in the application info, we say, that there are certain artists that we will, as for Black femmes, that we will not accept acts from. And so I'm just curious, other producers, yeah, and what y'all think our responsibility as producers is. Monet.
So during one of my Revenge of the Blurs shows, which were virtual, I had to let an artist know that their snippet of Michael Jackson they couldn't use. Michael Jackson is like the artist that so many people want to ignore what he did. I made a post on my Instagram about him being a pedophile on April 30th, and I'm getting threatening, bullying, harassing messages from strangers every day in my inbox because of this. He groomed the entire world. And as a survivor, for me, like one of my elementary school pictures has me wearing an I Love Michael button. I had a Thriller jacket up until a few years ago. I had a Michael Jackson cardboard bad era cutout. I was a fan. But after watching Leaving Neverland and seeing the pain in Wade and James' eyes were the same pain that I carry as a survivor as well. So for me, I have a list of people as well that you cannot perform to: Chris Brown, Marilyn Manson, R. Kelly, Michael Jackson. There's also some murky waters. I mean, there's full-on Led Zeppelin shows, but they're a whole bag of badness too. David Bowie, even beloved Prince. But for Michael Jackson, for me, especially because I did do a deep dive into what he did and how he groomed and the items that he had in his home. And he literally admitted to sharing his bed with minors that were he was not related to, which if Michael Jackson up the street wanted to have a sleepover with your children to introduce them to liquor and porn, you'd have a problem with it. But for some odd reason, Michael Jackson still gets this pass. So as producers too, I feel like some people need to be a little bit better at discerning certain things, like that festival that just happened recently that had like the blackface situation and stuff like that. Um, I had a show locally where this one white woman was going to perform to an R. Kelly song, and the producer, also white, came to me and I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, no, they were trying to do a satire on his abuse, but I said, you know what? He targeted mostly young Black girls. That is not your story to tell, because the reason and who he targeted was why he got away with it for so long. We literally had him on video. And as producers, we need to do better with making sure of certain things we have on our stage, not even like music wise, but just like make sure what you're putting on stage isn't going to be bad energy that's going to come back on you as a producer as well.
I see heads nodding. We're all just like, take that. I see Raina, I see your hand gently going up.
Yeah, I think as a producer, especially as a producer of a lot of music-based burlesque shows, I try to curate bands and artists that I like have researched and so I do know the background of. And also like just actually going through applications and being insistent that people give a description of what they want to do. Like I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily when they send an email are just like, oh well, this is like the overall theme, and I'm like, no, I need to know what you are doing in that act so that if you do something, so that if it has problematic material, I can say no to it. And I think that's also something that we try to curate in Emo-lesque Fest is this idea that yes, there are certain artists that aren't as problematic as others, but the super problematic ones we want nothing to do. And we want nothing to do with having problematic material on our stages. Well, problematic in again, like being super phobic or hateful in some way. I think there are certain acts where satire and like political commentary is necessary if you are part of that group. But, or if you are trying to make a point about something as a survivor or as a person of color or just as a queer person, just something that you want to make a statement about, but you have to also be very cautious of making sure that your parody and satire comes across and that you aren't just making something that the audience is going to be confused and hurt by.
Definitely. Thank you, Raina. Foxy.
Yeah, someone said that you have a little manifesto of what not to do in your shows. I was like, yeah, I do. Because I think over the years, in my own productions, in other people's productions, watching how folks produce what kind of material, excuse me, they request from their performers. Some producers don't scrutinize that much, and that's fine. You know, everybody has different capacities and show requirements. But my list is long and unfortunately getting longer of artists that cannot be played at my shows. That and I meticulously listen. You know, this is a one team show run thing. It's not, there's no help, there's no assistant, there's nothing. So I listen to every track, every single track, and ask folks to describe their performances. And the reason why is because I think we had one act where somebody was mimicking some kind of abuse to animals, and I was like, shit, why didn't I ask what the details of this act was? And a lot of people complained for that particular show. This was like 6 years ago. It was my third or fourth show here in New York. But I learned a lot from that. I learned that people actually want you to be cognizant of these things. If I'm producing a show, and especially the type of shows I produce, they're very much geared towards the Black experience. And so I feel it's important for me as a producer to tell the artists who are going to be in my shows, you know, one, be respectful of everybody, and your music should also reflect that. It's good to be satirical. It's okay to even make fun of somebody. I mean, I do an Eric Adams act, which is very popular. It's the most booked act. But I don't like Eric Adams. He's a piece of shit. I'm making fun of him in the entire act. Um, as well as the other ones that I do have. Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey is kind of a horrible person in real life, you know, and but I have an act about Steve Harvey, and it's again making fun of him. I think there are ways in which we can do these things with these people who are problematic, but I would never do an act to say R. Kelly. I mean, this person was just an absolute horror, or any person who has caused irreparable harm to women and children. And I think sometimes, like I've said, performers have been adamant and says, no, this is my act, this is my song, this I've done this all over. That's okay. But this is a small production. And again, we're focusing on the Black experience. So if you don't agree, that's fine, you know. And I've had people even tell me that well, I shouldn't only allow, I've allowed people to do covers of white songs, but by Black artists. That is my show. Every single act is a Black musician, Black artists, including our pre-show and intermission music. And it's because sometimes there are these artists that we don't even realize who the music has been stolen from. Black artists whose music has been stolen by white artists. And like, if you can find the original, do it. If you can't, that's okay. But if the person is problematic in any way, I think you need to reconsider. And Mystical was a big one. Some performers, like everybody knows, Abby had a fantastic act to Mystical, but Abby was one of those performers. As soon as things came to light about Mystical, um, she stopped performing to Mystical. One of her biggest acts was to a Mystical song, and she stopped performing to Mystical. And I appreciate performers who make the leap to make these big changes without being asked to. But there's some people who are so adamant and will refuse, and they'll defend this person to their grave. And I feel as a producer, it's really important to, you know, while we keep talking about separating the artist from the music, the artist, the person from the art, but I think the same applies to us as performers. Like, do we want people who are so adamant to give a platform to these abusive people in a show, just for just because they're popular, whatever? I book every single person I book. I don't do casting calls. I pick every single artist, every single performer. But sometimes I don't know what they're bringing. They may not bring what I necessarily want them to bring to the show, and I've asked performers to change things, and sometimes it feels intrusive to ask that, but I don't see any other way around it. I think it's really important to say, hey, look, in the beginning when I started producing, I remember thinking, I'm just going to book anything and everybody because I just really want to produce. But that thought quickly evolves once you start to take these shows even more seriously, gain more traction, gain more visibility. You want your shows to reflect who you are. And there's some shows, as we all know, don't care about that. It's like they'll book anything and anybody who fits the aesthetic, which is oftentimes not geared towards Black inclusion, But and the reason why my shows are specifically about Black artists with Black performers is to reintroduce and to also facilitate performances that are culturally based, are not, misogynistic or archaic types of conversation pieces that you hear in music today. I mean, I'm sure even with Aurora Borealis, I'm sure it's so difficult with some of these artists who some of their words are so geared towards violence, towards women. I can't imagine having to sift through those applications because I just have to do a show with 3 or 4 performers. So that's where I stand. Yeah. My list will not change. My list will increase. I will say if an artist has redeemed themselves, is that if an artist has apologized, has done the legwork, that is different. But I am yet to see that happen. So until that happens, they are on the no list. They can't be part of my show. Because I think we are giving them a platform. It doesn't matter that we're a small show in a bar or in a big venue. Somebody is getting influenced by what you're putting out. And so I don't want to be that negative influence, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm gonna say we're gonna wrap up right there, and we're gonna take a short break and come back with the next topic. So stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Jen Ponton.
And I'm Lillian Bustle.
And we're the hosts of All the Fucks,
a podcast about vulnerability.
But it's more than just that. It's nostalgia.
It's unrequited crushes.
It's the mortifying moments that make you want to crawl back inside your own belly button.
Ooh, and somehow it's sometimes about pelicans.
A pelican allegory, if you will.
Oh, I will.
So if your heart has ever felt like a skinned knee,
Oh, you'll fit right in as one of our fuck buddies.
All the Fucks. A storytelling podcast wherever you listen.
Hello, kitty cats. I'm Gemma from Tales and Tassels podcast. This is the show where you learn about the lives of burlesque and nightlife performers, their craft, their cats, and the way the two worlds collide. It's a space for cat-loving creatives with thoughtful reflections, backstage stories, and the occasional feline expert in the mix. 2 full seasons are streaming right meow. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, this is Miss Aurora Bubrialis, and we are back with WEView. We have some fabulous guests this evening. We have Whisper de Corvo, we have Raina Sinclair, we have Foxy Bellafrique, and we have Monet Hasidi. We are coming back into another conversation, which we were starting to touch on it because, things are interconnected. But in this segment, we are going to talk about dun dun dun. No, sorry, racial inequality and burlesque. That's a big ass topic. We're not going to be here all night though. So we are gonna I'm gonna give you a little jumping off point, just my own perspective, and then see what it brings up. And you don't have to stay with what I shared, but you can go your own place. But I'm gonna keep my thoughts brief. I'm gonna start on, because this can be a heavy topic. I'm gonna start on a bit of a positive note, which is thank you in the first segment. Y'all helped me figure out how long I had been doing burlesque, right? So it's 19 years, and I do see a shift. There is burlesque as this industry is now, still lots of challenges and all the things, but I really do see a shift from when I started creating burlesque and came into the burlesque world. And it was, creating burlesque in the little bubble of co-producing shows with the troupe that I co-founded, Brown Girls Burlesque. And we just were co-producing our own shows and then starting to go out into the larger New York City scene. And the feedback and energy we got was not that supportive at first. And except I will shout out Femme Appeal, who reached out to us right away and was like, welcome to burlesque, because Femme Appeal is fucking brilliant. But in any case, and fast forward 19 years to as I get the privilege of traveling a bit around this country and being at different festivals when I can afford to, and being at BurlyCon because I'm working for it, and just went to BHoF because we were doing the finishing school, and meeting so many more BIPOC folks and just different types of people doing burlesque is beautiful to see. So I wanted to start there. Am I a Pollyanna that thinks everything is peachy now? No, of course not. But yeah. So I just wanted to start there and then open up the floor.
Well,
jump on in, Monet.
A better half of 18 years doing burlesque in Sacramento, I'd been like the only Black burlesque performer. Most people who follow me on social media have known the anti-Blackness and stuff that I've experienced, which has included physical assault and doxing and all that stuff. I am going to Disneyland for a lot of reasons. And I started going back to Disneyland to take a break from burlesque because of all the stuff that happens within burlesque. But also, I feel like I'm not wanted anywhere. I am very much a lone wolf. And even though I've created spaces for Black performers, I personally have not really been invited to perform in any Juneteenth shows. So I feel even further isolated. People don't want to acknowledge how much colorism and fat phobia is in this industry, because I won't say community because it's still very much an industry, where people view me as the villain when I say things because of who I am. But it's frustrating because I am right a lot of the time. And if the message was coming from a more, quite frankly, fuckable person, then it might be listened to and taken more seriously. And all of that is still rooted in anti-Blackness. And it's just frustrating too to see so many shows still to this day still focus on being thin, white, cis, one type of burlesque. There's so many of us out here. I commented on a burlesque show at a Nerdalesque burlesque show at a con, and how everybody passed the paper bag test. And people got mad at me for saying that. But in this day and age, there's really no excuse. And there's so many of us out here. And also on that same note, you could start platforming people who already don't have those opportunities, because that helps them too. I feel like it's the same circle of the same people who are always getting seats at the table when they've already had it. When there's equality and enough for us to go around, and people should take a step back, and maybe, there's that diamond in the rough who just needs that one featuring or headlining to help them push them past that point. But we're not getting it because it keeps going to people who've already kind of, not saying they haven't worked hard, but it's like people who've already kind of had it. And it's how I feel about like influencers. It's like, why are you giving the people who can afford the stuff the free stuff? With burlesque, we need to have more of platforming people who maybe have not graced the stage of BHoF, who maybe not be on that top 50 list. I'm talking about me, but those people are deserving as well. And it still kind of breaks down to, I feel like a lot of times burlesque is just high school with rhinestones and Lake Avenue and tiny hats.
I see. Thank you, Monet. I see Whisper's hand right up.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk on there, but I want to touch on something Monet just said. It feels like only the popular people are allowed to make hot takes or smart takes, and everyone else, who may not be in someone's top 50 vote is not really allowed to have an opinion. The amount of times as an Indigenous person, I brought up to producers in Seattle that maybe having a white girl in a war bonnet or a white girl with dreads dressed up as Pocahontas is not appropriate, and then got blacklisted for speaking up about it. It's high and it's frustrating. And from what you said, Ms. Burlesque, it has gotten slightly better in that kind of casting. I don't have people saying, oh, well, she's from New Mexico, so she's probably Indigenous, or you're still here, you care. Actual comments I got from producers. That's happening a lot less. You're seeing it happening less in Europe too, which is a big one because they don't realize how racist they can be by things that they've just accepted. The microaggressions are kind of through the roof. So there are those ones. But yeah, the people who are allowed to make statements, I find very frustrating because I'm on Facebook way too much for my mental health. And I will see so-and-so over here making a statement and getting completely ignored. But someone with not even more followers, just higher standing in the community. And I will say community in this sense because we're on Facebook and we're chatting and we're talking. I actually don't believe we're a community or an industry. I believe we are somewhere in a messy middle. Because I think in an industry, we would have a lot more money coming in and we would have more standards. So I'm just going to state that one. We are definitely not a traditional community. We are definitely not a traditional industry. So that's just my point on that one. But yeah, as an Indigenous person, especially someone who can, depending on where I am and who I'm talking to, pass as white undesirably, it can be very interesting when people want to even just deny that this is even an issue to talk about. So I find that really fucking frustrating. That's just what I had to say.
I was actually going to speak to comment you made in the beginning regarding your experiences and how the landscape has changed with producing shows and the amount of folks who are being included that are not only white cast. For me personally, when I started producing was because I always talk about this, Mia the MVP and Pearl Noir and Poison Ivory were the very first Black burlesque performers I ever saw perform in New York. And this is even before I thought about performing. And I was just shocked that every time I saw them, they were either in exclusively white only cast, and it was just like one of them or two. I never thought about it that much until I became a producer myself. And I hit the ground running, and my show has had different variations. It's been inclusive. And I have been told by people who come in, I remember one white woman told me, but why an all black show? Like, what? Why an all black show? Like, you literally paid a ticket and it says on the ticket, it's a Black burlesque review. And I just looked at her. I really was in shock. And I wish I'd had a better response, but I was just really in shock. She wasn't, inebriated or anything. And that's why. That's exactly why. For questions like that. I had one venue that I produced in, the very first venue I produced, the second venue that I produced in for a year. One of the owners, a cis white male, kept asking me to make my cast more diverse. And I mean, I knew what he meant. Have some white people in it. And I said, you look at the New York landscape for burlesque, even today, there's so many predominantly white cast shows, even from some of our favorite producers, okay? However, there's very few of us. It's more of us, they're producing Black shows here in New York City, or shows that cater to Black and POC people. And my shows, again, are different variations, but it's predominantly Black. But I say I also produce queer shows. I also produce shows that will cast white people. My drag king shows do, but not my burlesque shows. And the reason being, I haven't seen that many burlesque performers. When I started out 8 years ago, I didn't see that many Black performers on stages. And then I remember seeing Radical as burlesque and being booked for. I was like, my God, they exist. But it was because I felt like there's more of us now. There's more of us producing, but also, the age of the internet and communication, we're able to now have more accessibility and be able to reach out to each other. People like Pochop, who has the Black Burlesque Directory, very important resource. I use it quite often to not only educate myself about Black performers everywhere, but Black performers that I would never have the opportunity to know about. And I think while there's more of us, while there's a lot of us doing shows, it's still not enough. I wish there were more of us, but we as I'm sure Aurora and Monet know, it's very hard for us to get funding.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder for us to get people on the seats, not because our shows are not good. Our shows are excellent, but because there seems to be a disconnect between the general public and supporting all Black or Black and POC shows. And it is upsetting. While I see change, I also hate to be a pessimist. I also, the change is so small. It's necessary, but it's been 8 years. Really, we should have more than 7 to 8 Black producers in New York City producing shows. This is a big metropolitan city. So I just wanted to speak on that specifically. But yeah, I've been performing for 8 years, producing also for 8. I kind of hit the ground running because I was impatient. Excuse me, y'all. I wanted to see people who looked like me. And I didn't want to just see the same folks, and especially the same folks who are, and a lot of you have said it, top 50. So even the Black producers, the Black performers who I was seeing frequently were folks who were, in top 50 list, or considered to be in the top 50 list, or very much booked and within the context of bookings here in New York City. I mean, myself included. I mean, the good thing is I do both drag and burlesque, so I don't rely just on burlesque. But if I just did burlesque, my bookings would be very slim, But even in performance and in what we do, talking about doing political acts, and mine are very much geared towards politics, misogyny, patriarchy. I've been told to tone down those topics. And in the beginning, I did, for sure, because I wanted to be booked. But after a while, when I started doing my shows, I realized actually I really do not have to cater to a specific white producer, because it's usually oftentimes a white producer. I've never had this experience with Black producers. But also, like I said, it's not that many of us here in New York City. So yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a change. I don't know if it will. I hope there will be. I hope there'll be more of us. But producing this show is not easy. Every year I want to quit, every single year. But then I'm reminded why we do it. And we have an audience, we've built a network, an audience. But let me tell you, that was very hard to do. It should not have taken us this long to get the traction that we now have. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you, Foxy. And I will just say that, as much as it feels like, oh, there's not a lot of us, Foxy, we have the privilege of being in New York City. Because I know, Monet, you're like, I'm in fucking Sacramento. Whereas we're like, oh, there's not a lot of us there. And we can name on two hands the Black producers in New York City. And you're like, and you're probably over there like, bitch, what? So we living in New York City, I recognize that that's a privilege that we do have, even though it's still fucking hard, and New York City is expensive as fuck, and spaces and all of that. But there are not enough, but more of us. I just wanted to acknowledge that, because regionally, every regional scene, it makes me think of professor in undergrad. I took a Black nationalism class with him my junior year, and Kamosi Woodard, brilliant professor. He still teaches at Sarah Lawrence. Anyway, he would be like, he was like, Atlanta Black is different from Chicago Black, is different from LA Black, is different from Newark Black. Like, and he got me really realizing like the regional difference, because we're in such a fucking big country. But anyway, I digress. So we are talking obviously about inequality and racism in burlesque, and I appreciate the listening. Raina, I see you actively listening. And Whisper, I appreciate you talking about your experiences as an Indigenous performer, and I do feel the intention of like letting Foxy and Monet speak, and I appreciate that. And I'm open it up and say, is there anything that you want to add to this? And Monet and Foxy, if there's other things that you want to add, of course. Raina.
The thing that I try to do as a white producer is to obviously platform Black and POC performers as much as I can. And also, as someone who is queer and alt and is often trying to support newer performers or performers that don't necessarily have as much clout, I think a lot of the things I'm looking for is, well, looking for is not necessarily the right word, sorry. Like, as somebody who is like an alt person, I think a thing that I sort of gravitate towards is performers that do have, that aren't as representative and want to do more alternative burlesque. And going back to our conversation about music, I think one of the things that is so lovely is that there's always new bands to find. There's always more Black and POC bands to find. And I try to make an effort to say, hey, my shows aren't just about trying to have white rock people music or just have white rock performers. I want to have everybody get a seat at the table. And I think what me, Nocto, and Regal Mortis do for Emo-lesque is try to have everybody have a seat at the table. Especially because I think in alt scenes and in emo scenes and in punk scenes, Black people do get erased a lot. And so it was very important to showcase a different perspective than just what white people see as the default. Does that make sense? Sorry if I like rambled.
No apologizing. And yes, that makes sense. And I see head noddings going on. Thank you for, yeah. Thank you for saying that. Is that bringing up anything? I'm seeing lots of like inner work.
Just a quick snippet, if that's okay.
Yes.
I just did a show where I was booked recently to do a punk rock theme show. Now, everyone knows me for doing 70s style, anything. But I was like, oh, I'll do it. And I don't listen to a lot of punk rock, but I was introduced to the Muslims. And in this punk rock theme show, nobody, and I mean nobody, knew the song I was performing to. And the song is Fuck This Fucking Fascists. Okay? Unity from the album Fuck This Fucking Fascists. And everyone was doing what was popular, punk rock music that was, revered, Green Day and everybody who's sort of popular. But I did the Muslims, and I just felt Like it fell flat. The performance, in my opinion, was good. People loved the performance, but I'll never forget everybody asking me, "Who was that? Who was that? Who was that?" And singing and not singing along because they didn't know the musician. They didn't know the people the band that I was performing to. But it made me start researching uh all scene artists. And I think just like in burlesque, just like in real life, even in music, erasure is common of Black artists across the board, everywhere. It's like this is a global issue. You know, I'm from East Africa, and oftentimes people say, "Oh my goodness, you're so lucky you grew up in Africa." Yeah, but colonialism still exists there. Racism still exists there. You're not going to escape racism by going to Africa.
Mm-mm.
You really are not. Even
Anti-Blackness is global.
anti-Blackness is global. And I see it in the music scene. And, you know, it's really interesting. I'm trying to be more open to other kinds of music, but my focus will always be Black and POC led music. But I just remember thinking, I thought everybody would know this song. But granted, I also had just found out about this band, but they're a great band. They're from North Carolina, and they just, you know, they're against the establishment. I like anybody who's sort of like, you know, fuck the government, fuck patriarchy. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to speak on that. I appreciate Burlesque Festival because I remember seeing the roster for the first event, and it was so diverse. Uh, and it introduces you to the different ways in which Black people are erased, Black and POC people are erased in music. Now, if people have to keep asking who are these artists, it's because they're not looking for these artists. They're looking for quintessential folks that they're familiar with, like Green Day or whatever. And sorry if I keep mentioning Green Day. I like Green Day, by the way, but but they're the band, I guess, that's popular. And again, this is not my forte at all. But having done this act, I just remember thinking that fell flat, you know. But it wasn't because I wasn't performing well to the music. It's just they didn't know the song, and it kind of hurt a little bit actually that they didn't know it. But I had only just discovered it like maybe 6 months ago. So when this opportunity came to do this show, I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to touch on that.
Raina, I see your hand up.
Yeah, touching on going off of what Foxy is saying, I do think a thing I try to do a lot is emphasize that there isn't just what's popular. And I know that, like, obviously there's this want to play what's popular and to dance what's popular because you want it to get booked over and over again and you want to make money. But like, I think a thing that like I really wanted to touch on the first year of Emo-lesque when I did my history of pop punk and emo talk was the idea that emo and pop punk have gotten more diverse, have gotten queerer, have gotten more political. And that, like, yes, obviously, like, Fall Out Boy and MCR are things that I love deeply, but there's more to it than that. Like, we can't just stay stuck in the 2000s forever. And that a lot of these young kids coming up are being the change they want to see in the world. And like sometimes I do feel like over neurodivergent when I like try to over explain my festival to other people and be like, no, like look at this band, like try to branch out from your comfort zone. Because there is a lot of great music out there. And I think that the more that you're open to learning about new stuff, the more that it becomes easier to platform that. Maybe platform's not the right word. I'm sorry. But like, yeah, like just be curious about trying to bring everybody together so that everybody gets to have a say and everybody gets a seat at the table.
That, Raina, I'm seeing what you're saying in terms of music is like a perfect analogy, bringing it back into burlesque. And, we're in, what is it? When this comes out, it'll be June 25th, right? So we're in June, and there's been that conversation online after every big event. There's always conversations online when some people were, oh, who are these? I don't know any of these people that won titles at BHoF this year, like those type of conversations. And I just think like the same thing you were saying, Raina, about being open and learning like outside of your comfort zone. It's really important for me, I think like one of the things that will make burlesque more, I'm like, as I say things, I'm also judging myself. I'm like, my internal is like, well, will it really? I'm like, okay, let me just say the thing. And then if I don't believe it, then I will tell you. But I'm like, let me at least get the thought out. One of the things is the more that we move out of our comfort zone and learn about other performers that might not have New York, the US is still such a gigantic place, and there are so many people like, Foxy, you don't travel outside of, you are very well known in New York City, and people outside of New York City, if they've come to New York City, they know who you are, but everybody should fucking know who Foxy Bella Freak and Uncle Freak is, because you are a phenomenal performer. And, we in New York City get the privilege of being able to interact and perform with you, and we're so honored. And if at some point later on in a different era of your life, you're able to like go to other places to perform, people would be like, who's that? And be like, y'all don't know, this person has been killing it forever. But there are so many incredible performers of all different walks of life all over this country. And so I feel like a responsibility going as producers to put up people that maybe not, like Raina, like you were saying, that maybe are not always getting all the big gigs and whatever. And Whisper, I see a hand.
No, it's not just who we book in our shows, though. It's whose names we speak in rooms when they're not there.
Yeah,
we go to other producers and we say, you know what, I just saw this kick-ass fucking performer. It's totally new to me, and if you don't know them, you should. It's important that we are always bringing that, not just for the shows that we produce, but for the other rooms that we're in, the other producers. Because I hear, I'm in the Pacific Northwest. So I was counting on my hand, and we have, unless I've forgotten someone, which, it's really fucking hot here right now. So if that's why, that's why. We have like maybe 5 Black producers in the Seattle, Bremerton-ish area. That's not a lot, but you know what? It's a hell of a lot more than it was 18 years ago. And that's a big deal. But these are producers that said, I'm going to make room. I'm going to make room so people don't fight as hard as me. There are a couple Indigenous producers. We're going to make room. We're going to make room so other people don't have to fight as hard, and other people don't have to have the same conversations. So that's a big one. But it's also, and this is the thing I have to constantly remind myself, we live in bubbles. Not you, Monet. You do not live in a bubble. You live in Sacramento. I used to live there. I know what that's. But we live in bubbles where if we don't look too far beyond it, it can be like, well, burlesque is what we see because we are burlesque performers and producers. I was just on fucking Pinterest. I'm doing an art project where I'm painting gorgeous bodies, burlesque bodies, just in stage lights. So they're all rainbow. And they're almost all fat and they're gorgeous. And just going to toot my own horn for a second. But I was looking at reference materials on Pinterest. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to type in burlesque and we're going to see what they see as burlesque on Pinterest. And because my autistic mind said, you know what? I'm going to do a research. I also said, I'm going to set a timer on my phone. And I'm going to be wrong. I'm telling myself, I am going to be wrong. And I'm like, I'm going to just scroll until I find a performer of color or a fat performer, one or the other. I've got two. This should be easy. 30 seconds maybe scrolling on Pinterest. I'm a fast scroller. All right. 5 minutes. First person, Jezebel Thunder. Immediate line next is Pearl Noir. So this is what, if someone types in on Pinterest what they're seeing Lake Avenue costumes or high-end showgirl. They're seeing white and they're seeing skinny, and that's it. And there are two sides of me, like there are two wolves inside of me. One says, no, the way I see burlesque, it's so much better than it used to be. It's so beautiful and getting more inclusive. And I'm very excited about where it's going. And the other side of me said, but bitch, is it? And the side that our patrons that are not already burlesque people, who don't follow people online and aren't focusing on what really is burlesque inside of what we present burlesque as, they're seeing this one very white, very skinny, and I gave myself the luxury of being sad about it and the luxury of being slightly surprised, because what I see is far more beautiful than that. And it was both not surprising and also really disappointing. But
well, the general public has a consensus of what burlesque is, right? So when I was on the Amtrak like a week or two ago, I was talking to the woman across from me, and I was talking about I did burlesque, and the lady across the aisle spoke up. She's like, oh, like the movie? And I had to let her know that we actually take our clothes off, and I had to explain how that movie is so not rooted in reality of burlesque, which we talked about this, I think, in a previous episode. Yes, and the blonde black character's name is Coco. But I had to tell her, I was like, yeah, not so much like that. There's not a club dedicated to burlesque where you'd make more money dancing as you would be serving. There would not be dedicated. Everybody has their own vanity. Everything is one size fits all. They provide costumes for you. There's a live band, even though they're lip syncing. There's so many things about that. And I feel like oftentimes when you tell a person that you do burlesque, either Dita comes up in their mind or that movie. And so they see
trashy people in bars, because I got the two visions. I got the Dita and the Cher version over here, and I'm going to just lump them together. All right, let's just lump the babies together. And then we got the over 40 fat, ugly performers who have no athleticism, who bring nothing to the stage. I get that way more often than I get this. If I'm honest.
Well, they couldn't be
strippers. Yeah, 6'2". I stand up and I look down at them. And I'm like, say it again.
And so like the general public still has this idea that burlesque is very thin, cis, white, sparkly, glamorous, sexy. You get horny, or you want to have some type of intimate activities with them. And there's a whole world of burlesque where that is not the thing, where I feel like with my burlesque, it's for me to tell the story, but not to turn you on. And especially in Nerdalesque, there's different ways about that. But the general public just sees, certain things like Taylor Swift, with her showgirl, whatever the hell that is. And then you get all these people buying feathers, headpieces, and fringe, and those cheap feather boas where the feathers are melting, which are so sad. And they, it's like that burlesque. And so it's just it's very frustrating to see people who are using our aesthetic, but then not really hiring us for these burlesque events either. And I think even R. Kelly's ex-wife was trying to do some burlesque, whatever, Or
Yes.
even, oh my God, Jocelyn from Love and Hip Hop, her little show where she was casting for burlesque, it made me so angry because I used to watch her when she was a messy bitch on Love and Hip Hop. Like, I used to watch that a lot. But when I saw her show and then she was choreographing and she was even 5, 6, 7, 8, and there's a whole, just because you put on rhinestones and the feathers does not make it burlesque.
On that note, we are going to take a break and we'll see what happens next.
Hey, this is Viktor Devonne, and I'd like to thank you for listening to the WeBurlesque Podcast Network. You're in the middle of a ad break for the WEView, and if you would like to appear in said ad break here or in any other podcast appearance of the WeBurlesque Podcast Network, I encourage you to go to weburlesquepodcast@gmail.com and submit your MP3 or audio file for consideration. And I don't really want to do the whole BetterHelp Green Chef situation. I'd rather promote folks who, like me, are entertainers who also have other things that we do. So, if that sounds like you and any of this made any sense, you can go to weburlesquepodcast@gmail.com and let me know what you got going on. Goodbye.
Hello, and we are back with WeView, and our next and final topic is burlesque and parenthood, something that three of us have gigantic thoughts about. And who wants to jump in first? Whisper, I see your eyebrows.
Well, here I am. I started burlesque at I'm not going to do math. Let's just say around 24, 25. And I had a kid at 28. So I was already a performer. And then I went through and performed pregnant, walked near naked in a pride parade while very visibly pregnant. And I have dealt with all of the ups and downs of having a kid, a neurodivergent kid in a neurodivergent household, while being a performer. And I never took a break because I never thought I could. So I just kind of had a baby and kept on shimmying. But yeah, it's definitely a very wild thing to experience. When I had a kid in Seattle, almost all the other performers, either if they had kids, they were already teenagers or they were firmly anti-child. And having a kid in Seattle, it is not delightful because it's a very dog-friendly city, but it's not a very kid-friendly city. And it's an interesting thing juggling being a very not child industry, and there should not be children, and I will not change my mind on this one, to also then having a kid at home who still to this day thinks I dance like a weird little, I forgot her name, but from Bob's Burgers, that's what I tell my kid I dance
Tina?
like. Yeah, I tell my kid that's why people pay me. This is exactly what I do. And to this day, they believe me. But they used to think I was a superhero because I would leave the house with a suitcase and I'd come back when my various parts of my costume and my makeup's still on. And so naturally, as a toddler, they were like, my mom, my parent, is a superhero. Dad rides the bus to work, so therefore his job is riding the bus. But I fight crime. Sexy, sexy crime. My kid is now 15, by the way. I didn't say that.
I love that. Foxy.
A loaded one for me. I started performing when my daughter was about 4 years old. Yeah. Yes, 4. 5, sorry. 5 years old. Almost 5. And Initially when I started, there was a lot of support from my co-parent, and very supportive, dropped me at shows, took me to one casting. I did one casting one time, never again, because I realized I'm too old for this. I'm above 30. I can't move like that anymore. And I was just starting out, and I felt very conflicted, to be honest, with the desire to perform and my religious background and being a parent and conversations from people about what I was doing. I even have an entire act, which is snippets of actual things people have said to me because I'm a performer and how obscene it is. And then slowly the support, when they realized it wasn't just a hobby, that I was probably going to be doing this for a while, I think I was tolerated initially. And I think my child has also gone through phases of trying to understand what I do, but she's old enough to understand. She's 12 now. And, trying to explain what a burlesque performer is, defending what a burlesque performer is, as a parent. And I had the same experience as Whisper, either the people that I knew who were parents, their kids were older, so there wasn't as much, navigating. And others, the kids were either too young or folks who just didn't want children who don't understand it. So I felt isolated until I met other performers who are parents, like Abby Fantastic, who's a wonderful friend, and Miss Aurora Burbialis, and speaking to folks about what it is like to be a performer. And, I struggle with it sometimes because I'm like, maybe it would be easier if I just did something everybody was palatable, that everybody would feel comfortable with. But then I would not be true to myself as a parent as well, because I'm also basing it on my experiences growing up and, seeing my mother work so hard. My mother's a hard worker, my father as well. But also I have a different experience as a single parent household. So it's less about what anyone else thinks, including my child, but what am I comfortable doing, and what subconsciously or what consciously will I feel good doing? Should I just stop performing because it will be less problems for me from other people, or should I continue and defend myself? And that's the route I've chosen, a very hard route. So we've had fluctuating phases where, like Whisper said, I'm like a superhero. I show up as a freak and I'm like, oh my God, you look great, to Mom, you got to change. Or, we've gone through those phases where it's embarrassing. And I don't know if I should necessarily use that word, but I use it because that's how I feel if I'm being criticized about what I'm doing. But I think we're in a good place now. Yesterday she helped me do my bald cap. And I recorded it because I want that memory to stick, And it's very hard when outside voices are telling you, why'd you do this? You're a mom. Don't you worry your kid will do this too? That's something somebody said to me. And, I was like, I would support my kid if my kid did this. If that's the path that they chose, yeah, I would support my child. I think as parents, we're expected to be goddamn saints. And I am no saint. I'm no wallflower. No matter what anybody might think or assume about me, I'm 4'11", but I'm like a Rottweiler. So I'm like, you can't intimidate me as a person who has already had so many experiences around being a parent, a lot of hardship, but also now you want to take away burlesque from me? It's like choose the way in which you want to show up for me or not show up at all, but don't dictate how I live my life. So I think with being a parent, to be honest, I've had moments where I'm like, you know what, if I just stop performing, it will be easier. It will just be easier. But then I will forever regret it, and I will forever punish myself for not following, because it's not like it's a dream. I never thought I'd be doing this. I just discovered I was good at it. And by the way, thank you, Aurora Borealis, for that really lovely compliment earlier. And I really, really enjoy being able to create these characters or these pieces that we do on stage. And it's very nice to include my child. But like I said, we've had ups and downs about it. And I'm sure they will fluctuate as she grows older. But I think my job is to be a parent, but also to be true to myself. And if I'm to be true to myself, is to continue performing, no matter what the consequences from that are. And when I say consequences, they seem like they're consequences because they're very serious things being requested of me. And I don't know. I remember one performer said, "Oh, I'm my partner likes me performing, but once I become a mom, I don't think I can anymore." And I was like, so that's no support. If they're okay with you doing this until you become a mother, you're not the Virgin Mary, okay?
Mhm.
And it's sort of like you're not you're being sequestered to a role that is supposed to be solely focused on your child. And while that is well and good, you can also focus on yourself. So
Mhm.
that is the the part that I'm trying to balance out to this day. It's getting better, but I have to be honest. Sometimes, I'm like, oh God, I have to go to a PTA meeting or I have to go to a school thing. I have a busy day, but I still have a gig at night. And it does sometimes get in the way. Someone said, how do you do it? How do you manage doing, and I'm sure you've heard this, Aurora. How have you managed being a performer and being a parent? It's like, I don't know. I just know that I love it that much that I'm willing to do everything in my power to do both. Because me being a parent should not take away from me being a performer in any way. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So many things that were ringing true. Um, so right. I had my daughter when I was 37, right? She's 14 now. And so I had already been doing burlesque for how many ever years, me and math. And a funny story, the first, so I breastfed her for sidebar, the US and the UK are like the only two countries in the world that are like, oh, breastfeeding just this tiny amount of time. The whole rest of the world is like, so I breastfed her till she was 3 because like that's normal in almost everywhere else besides fucking US and UK. But anyway, so she was born in the UK when I was living in the UK actually. And the first gig I had and I did perform pregnant also, yay, woohoo. But the first gig I had post having her, um, it was probably, I don't know how for the first 5 months, my mom was staying with us in the UK. And so the first time I got a gig, I could just, I pumped, I left her with my mom and my then husband, and I went to the gig, but because I was breastfeeding, I had to pump during intermission because pain otherwise, right? So the host comes on, she's an amazing host. Oh, I'm blanking on her name right now. Anyway, brilliant, brilliant. She's a poet and a singer, and she's based in Manchester at the time. Anyway, so she comes on and she was like, I thought I'd seen a lot of things in a burlesque dressing room. I've been around this for a while, but this is the first time I've seen someone pumping in a dressing room. And then there was like somebody in the audience who came up to me after and who was also a new mom and was so excited that like I allowed that to be mentioned, and was just like that thing of like actually talking about something that people don't talk about so openly was really awesome. So that was a fun backstage moment. Uh, but my daughter had been in rehearsals when she was a toddler and a baby. Like I just bring her to rehearsals and stuff. And then there was a whole segment of time where it's like, yeah, no, now she's in elementary school and she's not it's just not that separation. But I will say that I I know I hesitate to not say, oh, I'm the first who did this, but I actually think I was the first person to organize a burlesque fundraiser for an elementary school because I was on the executive board of the PTA at my daughter's elementary school. And we have the privilege of living in New York City where that's not something that could get you, problems like in other parts of the country. But yeah, she went to PS3. And there are actually other New York City burlesque performers that also went to PS3. So I organized a a burlesque fundraiser and like Exotic Other, Sister Selva, who are my co-creators of Brass Brown Radical Ass Burlesque that Foxy mentioned earlier. Johnny Pork Pie also went to PS3. David Bishop, the Bishop of Burlesque, also went to PS3. So we had a whole show fundraiser for my daughter's elementary school. And that was amazing. So I have never hid that I do burlesque. My daughter's 14 now. When she was younger, she'd be wanting to, put makeup on me and like practice makeup and she also sews. And so we've talked about, but right now she's like, oh, I can only make clothes for myself, but I have hopes that one day she will be my own personal costumer. But goals.
I just want a kid that will rhinestone with me.
Yes.
My kid is not into it.
Oh.
It's such a letdown. Like, why did I even have you?
But
it's obviously a joke, but yeah.
Yes. I feel like burlesque has made me a better parent, and I feel like parenthood has made me a better burlesque performer. And I mean that could go just artist in general, like not even but just, and I'm not saying that everyone should have a kid. I don't believe everybody should have a kid. I believe everybody should do what the fuck they want to do. But for me personally, I feel a depth of thing after the first couple of years, because the first couple of years were a fucking blur, and I felt like I did not at all have the balance of parenthood, artist life at all, and and I just felt like I was failing both all the time. So that's definitely a space. And now I'm to the point, my daughter is also she's a dancer and just a brilliant human, and I am inspired by her, and I actually created a piece called out of a poem that I wrote about her when she was a toddler, and I got to perform it out in Portland at the first Book Lovers International Festival. And that was, I think, the only time that I've ever gotten a standing ovation. And it was really meaningful that it was to that piece called Letter to My Daughter. And it was a piece about me looking at her and thinking about her journey and the difference between us and the difference between my mom and me, because my mom is a white woman and my daughter is white assumed, and just the differences. And so it was very powerful to perform that piece in the burlesque world and share that part of myself, because I definitely did feel that same thing Whisper and Foxy about the other burlesquers. There was a lot of anti-childness, and that's hard. It was hard for the first bunch of years. And then there is a space where more people are having kids. And like I said, I don't necessarily think that everybody needs to have kids, but I appreciate people thinking about and I was one of those assholes before I had a kid too. So let me just say that. That one time booked a a rehearsal on Mother's Day, not thinking about it. I was like, what? You want to go do something with your mom? So I'm not saying, yeah, I will own that. Before I had a kid, I did that. Yes, I did. So, yeah, whisper.
I just want to say, because this is an important distinction. When I talk about anti-kid, I'm talking to people who are anti-kid at me, not people who don't want to have kids themselves. That's fucking valid. Kids are hard, even if you're not a performer. Like, if you don't actually want to do this, don't fucking do it. So I just want to make sure that, like, anyone listening doesn't think that we're doing that thing that happens to people who don't want children themselves, where they're being shamed. That's not what this is. It's when that that complete exclusion of wanting children, that child hate, gets pushed at people who do want to have kids. That's what I am specifically talking about.
Thank you for that clarification. Samesies. Yes.
I agree as well.
I went to my first festival 3 months after my kid was born. This was too soon. I'm going to say that. Also, I didn't have people in my life that gave me accurate information. So, like, I was exclusively breastfeeding. We had saved up amount for the baby, and that's all I thought about it. I didn't think about, by the end of the plane trip from Seattle to Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, that I was going to be smuggling bowling balls and marbles in my bra. I had to be taught by someone who has not had a kid how to express in a shared bathroom at an Airbnb the festival had rented for all of us performers. So here I am, totally brand new to it, and I'm just like, I don't know what's happening. Am I dying? There are hard lumps.
Oh, the lumps.
Oh,
things I don't miss.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an experience, and it's still I still laugh today because I had to be taught by one of my my mentor people who were at the festival, who were just like, yeah, you need to just go hand express. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? There's just a baby, I plug it on. What do you mean I'm still on tap?
Wow.
Yeah.
I think there's so many things in burlesque, and I know we could go on for hours, but we are at our time. But I think there is so many things that are a part of the human body experience that as performers we should be talking about, because these are all just natural things that happen to us. So whether it's talking about that, right, what happens breastfeeding and expressing all of that in kids, or talking about, you know, those of us going through perimenopause, all these things that happen to bodies need to be talked about, and how that affects us as burlesque performers, for people that have uteruses and are at some point gonna deal with, I'm in perimenopause at the moment. That's a whole other topic, Victor.
Same.
Yeah.
This is,
my God, the night sweats.
There's so much value in the burlesque aunties, because I am a burlesque auntie, but I'm like baby level auntie, and I'm cool with it, because I get to turn around and go, hey, so is this a thing, or am I just crazy? And the value that has, because that is the only place in my life I have that kind of community where I can turn around and go, hey, can we talk about this? So that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Whole other show.
Yeah, whole other show. Absolutely. I mean, I'm dealing with night sweats right now. It's crazy. I can't stand it.
Oh,
Being perimenopausal is probably one of, I think it's, gosh, I don't recommend.
They don't tell us anything. They just tell us we stop bleeding, but they don't tell us that our ears get itchy.
That one is driving me nuts.
Oh.
You sweat and have to change your sheets all the time. God damn. I'm like, I told my doctor, this can't be normal. Is this what happens? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, God, I don't understand why there's not enough information out there regarding this. And I know I'm off topic, but my God, if I'd only known. And I think it matters for performers who are on stage, like I look crazy sweating in the winter, like last winter when it started. I'm sweating, everyone else is cold. I'm like, no, it's hot as hell in here. But I am just in absolute agony, like the sun is on top of me. And, having to navigate that and perform. I don't even know how I did it, but it was a lot. It is a lot. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, we obviously want to come back and talk all about that, Victor. But because we got stories and questions and all the thing. But I want to thank everyone for their listening and talking and sharing and all of that. So I'm just gonna call on each person and very quickly just tell us where people can find out more about you on the socials or whatever, if this is their first time hearing of you. I'm gonna start with Monet.
So if you like concerts, titties, kitties, and Disney, I am at Disneyland, Nizzneyaland on Instagram.
All right, Foxy.
Thank you, Aurora, for moderating this panel. It was great. I enjoyed it very much. I can be found on Instagram at Foxy Belle Afrique. That's FoxyBelleAfriq, or my drag king page, Uncle Freak at Uncle Freak 2020, or my production page at Frolic_burlesque. We're always doing something here in New York City, and yeah, we love doing this. I have to say also thank you to Victor. Victor is not aware, but Victor is also a big part of why I do burlesque. I remember going to Rock Bar lot, and when I was booked at Rock Bar by Victor, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I've made it. And it felt fantastic being in that space. There's a lot of people who are really I'm really grateful to you as well, Mr. Aurora Borealis. Again, I am going off topic, but thank you all. You're all wonderful.
Reina.
You can find me personally at Raina, Raina, Sinclair, Sinclair, the number's 28. My production page, so Raina Sinclair 28. My production page is Magical Girl Burlesque, and the festival page is Emolesque, EMOLESQUE Festival, how it's spelled. If you like alternative, nerdy, weird shit and hot takes about anime and comic books, follow my stories, I guess. Thank you, Aurora and Victor.
Yes, and Whisper.
You can find me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook too, but don't get on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. And I am Whisper to Corvo, and that's Whisper_DE_Corvo, because nobody could write my name right on posters. So I put it on there intentionally. And my link tree has all the stuff that I'm doing. So, find me. It'd be great. And thank you to Victor and to Aurora. It was wonderful to be involved.
Thank you. And my Instagram is, and this confuses everybody because I'm a performer in and outside of burlesque. And how many times have I said this tonight? And I have the privilege of not having to hide that. So my Instagram is Dawn's Mind. Get very confused. Why can't I find you on Instagram? Because my Instagram is Dawn's Mind, because I am a performer outside of burlesque and I don't have the capacity to have multiple. So it's Dawn's Mind is my Instagram. In terms of Boombox, the hip hop burlesque festival, we are Boombox Burlesque, all spelled the traditional way, boom and box and burlesque, for Instagram. But I also am on Upscrolled, and at some point I'm gonna try to fucking leave Meta, because fuck Meta. Hasn't happened yet because I have started getting a great following on Instagram. They trap you. But anyway, I am on Upscrolled as Miss Aurora Borealis. And there's a few burlesquers on there. I got like 28 followers, and I'm following 47 other burlesquers, and I got like 7 posts. But hey, it's got to start somewhere. If you're not familiar with Upscrolled, and I am not at all paid by them, I just am wanting an off meta platform. It's no algorithms. It's like I was an OG Instagram user since like back before Meta acquired them. So it's like literally just time. Whoever you follow, you can scroll back and see what they posted. And it was created by a Palestinian software person or whatever. So but there's not a lot of burlesque on there yet, but I'm on there. So and yeah, thank you, Viktor, so much for always doing so much for the community and giving platforms. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And oh wait, let me say it. All right, so you have been listening to WEView, and I have been your moderator, Miss Aurora Borealis. Thank you to all, and have a great night or day or whenever you're listening to this. All right, bye.
The WEView is a product of the WEBurlesque Podcast Network, White Elephant Burlesque, and Viktor Devonne. All commentary is that of the creators of said speaking. So if I agree with them, that's great. If you agree with them, that's great too, but that's what they wanted to say. I love them for it. Please support the pod by going to patreon.com/weburlesque or finding some other way via the footnotes, and follow these fabulous entertainers who dared speak up at a time when so many people feel silenced. Love ya.